Scream 7 is the latest movie in the franchise where we once again follow Sydney Prescott, or Evans as she is called now, as she has to fight yet another killer alongside her daughter Tatum. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am the Movie Tin, and now before I start this review, I just want to say that I am an enjoyer of this movie. Hold on, I'll delete the comment. I can see it, delete it. But with that, I also fully support anyone who wants to boycott this movie or hate on it, because I agree that what happened behind the scenes with Melissa Pereira was incredibly wrong and should not have happened. So don't hate on me thinking I want to support this movie even though all the controversy happened. No. If you want to boycott, I support you. Now with that being said, I do like this movie. I enjoyed it. I have problems, which I'll get into, but for the most part, I really did enjoy it. So I'll discuss the movie for a while, then I'll get into some positives, then I'll get into my negatives, because I do have some. All without spoilers, by the way, I'll do all that without spoilers. And then I will get into spoilers, but I will give a warning beforehand in case you don't want anything spoiled for you if you haven't seen it yet. Or just, yeah. So don't worry, you will get a spoiler warning before the spoilers happen. So without further ado, Scream 7 review, let's go. So starting off here with just our general discussion, I think Sydney in this movie really works as a main character again. And with saying that, I'm not one of those people who is like, you can't have a Scream movie without Sydney. I'm not one of those people, alright? So just know that. And I did love Sam as our main character in 5 and 6. And I didn't mind that Sydney wasn't in 6. But to have her as a main character again, I think is very good and it works very well. Especially since now we have her relationship with her daughter Tatum. And the relationship that they have written for them in this movie, Sydney and Tatum, I thought was great. One of the best things about the movie. It's not going to be included in my positives because I'm talking about it now, but I love their relationship. I thought it was so well written. Their relationship writing was fire, because you can see why Tatum would be angry at Sydney and why Sydney would be frustrated at Tatum. It was just really well writing by Kevin Williamson, and I really enjoyed their relationship. Also, Joel McHale as Mark was actually much better than I thought he would be. I think I just thought, since it was supposed to be Patrick Dempsey, it would feel weird that it isn't. But it doesn't. He actually really fits as this character. Would I have liked Mark Kincaid back? Yeah, I would have. But Mark Evans will do. And Joel McHale was actually very good in the role. So I don't mind him. Another thing I want to bring up here is the twins, Chad and Mindy Meeks Martin. Their full legal name, yeah. And while I do think their best appearance was in Scream 6, they both fit really well in here, and I love seeing them interact with Tatum and the new characters, which is weird, because at one point they were the new characters. How far they have come since Scream 5. And even though they don't get a lot to do in the movie, it was still really nice to have them in here. Weird to have 2 members of the core 4, but, you know, Spyglass. But yeah, still good to have them in here, and they fit really well. I also want to bring up Gail as the last thing before positives. I feel weird about Gail in this movie. The way she gets introduced into it was amazing and shocking, and she does stick around for a while after that, but there's a point in here when she just kind of disappears for like 30 minutes. And if you look at it from a character like Sydney's standpoint, it makes sense. But if you look at it as an audience member, it's weird. It's where did Gail go? So that was weird. Nice to have her in here, of course. I love Courtney Cox as Gail, and every time she's included, it's great. But she just kind of disappears at a certain point, and it's like, She's not really a main character, she just disappears for like 30 minutes at a time. Now, starting with positives, the kills. The kills in here are absolutely brutal. One kill in particular was the goriest, I think, in the franchise. And yeah, at a certain point you could tell it was fake, but what they did was crazy. Of course, and there is a lot of CGI blood used as well in the movie, which doesn't really take you out of it. I don't think it looks bad. But the one practical kill, well, there's probably more than one practical kill, but the practical kill was insane. Another positive is the opening scene. While it doesn't have a huge impact on the movie, not even really a big, not an impact at all. It doesn't have an impact at all on the movie. But it is still a great opening scene. And I loved our two characters in the stew house. Not really a spoiler because it's in the trailer, but it's a really inventive opening scene as well, and I love that. Now let's move on to negatives. I do have more positives to talk about. Like I said, I do enjoy this movie, but I think if I keep on going on with what I liked, I will be burned at the stake. So, negatives. First negative I have is the killer's motive. It is definitely the weakest in the franchise, and I will go into more depth in the spoiler section, but the motive in this movie just wasn't it. Definitely the weakest in the franchise. Worse than Scream 3 and 6. Definitely much, much worse. Another negative is the final fight, and kind of the third act as a whole. Again, I will go into more detail in spoilers, but it was over way too quick, and honestly, kind of felt rushed. Didn't ruin the movie for me, but it definitely brought it down a couple points. I think if they just spent more time in the third act, kind of doing more stuff, it would have been better. Even though we got the whole town chase scene, which was incredible, should have included that in my positives. But the third act overall felt rushed, probably because the town chase scene was so long. Alright, with all that out of the way, I'm going to get into spoilers now. So if you haven't seen the movie yet and don't want to be spoiled, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Still here? Okay. Let's get right into the spoilers then. First of all, Matthew Lillard as Stu Macher. I know, not really a spoiler because his voice was in the trailer and his name was on the poster. But oh man, was it good to have him in here. Even though he was AI, still amazing to just have Stu in another Scream movie. And I hate AI. I don't think it should be used at all, and they don't really use it in the movie. From a creative standpoint, they do. In the context of the movie, they do. And I'm kind of glad that they do, because it gave us cameos from Roman, Mrs. Loomis, and Dewey. So yeah, I hate AI, but in the movie, I'm kind of glad they included it. And also, I have always been a Stu truther, and still am because Matthew Lillard himself still is. But Alive or Dead, still surreal to have Stu in another Scream. But in my mind, he's alive. My tinfoil hat is staying on. And now I'm just kind of wondering, what are they going to do in Scream 8? Because it's definitely going to be a Scream 8. What are they going to do? They brought back legacy characters in this one. How are you gonna top Stu coming back? How? Now that we're also in spoilers, we can talk about the killers. And those killers, of course, being Jessica, Margot, and Carol. Even though Carol was taken out early on, which is cool. Great introduction for Gale into the movie, and something they haven't done in the franchise before, unmasking a ghost face halfway through the movie. Like, that's crazy. But since we didn't really know Carol, he had like 2 seconds of screen time beforehand. They could have executed that idea a bit better. Still insane though to see a Ghostface get unmasked in the middle of the movie. Anyway, the motive for these killers is really weak. Jessica's kind of mad at Sydney for trying to move past her trauma. That is kind of lame as a motive. And the final fight, come on now. Marco was shot in the head and dealt with in like 2 seconds. Like he had a few lines, then he wasn't even included in the final fight. He was taken out beforehand. Marco was probably the second worst Ghostface in the movie, and I say that because the fight between Jessica and Sydney was actually really good. The way Sydney was just stabbing her in that one part, great, and the way Jessica gets taken out with the gunshots, great stuff. And then we do get the line of Tatum saying, "I'm Sydney fucking Prescott's daughter," which I thought she kind of delivered a bit weird. Nothing against the actress, Isabel May. But it just sounded like for a second she was just going to say, "I'm Sydney fucking Prescott." And I was like, what? And then after she said that, it was like, "Stutter." I was like, oh. Okay. Bit of a weird line read, but whatever, you know. I'm not an actor. I can't really judge. But yeah, the motive and final fight was kind of weak. It was very rushed, and yeah, weakest in the franchise. But that's all I have to say about Scream 7. Overall, I give it a solid 7.5 out of 10. Let me know in the comments below what you think of it, and what do you want to see from Scream 8, because that's coming. Thank you all for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you feel like it. And I'll see you all in the next one. Peaky Blinders The Immortal Man Review. Let's